Good morning and good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our next installment of Changemakers Bite Size. Today, I'm delighted to introduce Eric Waller, who will be taking you through transforming huddles and using effective facilitation to become a better leader. So without further ado, Eric, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. Hi, everyone. It's good to be here. When I look back on my career, especially the first half, it's shocking how little attention and focus I put on facilitation and the value of facilitation for leaders. So that's really what I think I want to accomplish over the next 20-ish minutes, is just to drive that point home. Facilitation and that kind of soft skill communication is critical. So why is it important? Why is it important to build that capability? I think, well, fundamentally, it's about dealing with human beings. As leaders, as problem solvers, we are dealing with humans, and it's all about getting a group of people engaged, capturing their knowledge, getting to the truth, and improving. And to do that, you've got to be able to facilitate with skill. As I alluded to before, facilitation, I think, is chronically underutilized and underappreciated. It's certainly the case in my career, and I've seen it time and time again. Even the clients that we're dealing with now, it's not really appreciated how important it is, which is kind of strange if you think about it, because in the lean world, we talk a lot about how lean is 30% tools and 70% culture, behaviors, and communication, but yet we constantly underinvest in those kind of soft skills like facilitation. I think third, the more engagement equals better quality of discussion equals a higher quality of thinking. And that's really what we're after. We want that high quality discussion and high quality of thinking so we can go solve problems and move forward. And to be able to do that, it takes engagement. And then finally, like anything else, more skill equals more speed equals more quality. The more efficient I am at something, the better I am. I'll do it better. The team will do it better and do it faster. And it really is about engaging people. I think positive and constructive engagement is what organizations need, but a lot of times they lack because they haven't focused on this idea of building facilitation. Whether it's in a tiered meeting huddle or a strategy session or a problem-solving session. That's why we it's important to build that. So one of the tools that we at SA Partners use is a model called Soundwave. And at a high level, Soundwave is really just about communicating better, helping leaders and organizations and teams communicate better. I like to think of it as it enables you to use or find the right voice at the right time to get the right results. And if you look down here on the left, let me get my pointer ready. So the model itself is built around these three clusters of voices: ask, tell, and suggest. And within each of those clusters, there's three other voices for a total of 9. Now, for facilitation engagement, you can see over here on the right, we really focus on 5. And that's inquire, probe, and diagnose, the 3 ask voices, challenge, and then articulate. And there are subtle but real differences between each of those voices, which we'll get to on the next slide. But a couple of points I like to make is that with this, you don't really have to focus on all 9, and really it's these 5 for facilitation and driving engagement. And even within that, typically, you may have 1 or 2 you want to really improve. The way we roll out Soundwave to clients is, you get a profile, your own profile, and then typically in any person's profile, there's 1 or 2 gaps that they need to work on. So that's what makes this tool really powerful is its practicality and its simplicity, and then you can get results really quickly. A couple other points are that across the globe, these voices here on the right tend to be socially acceptable, and the voices down here on the left tend to be socially unacceptable. And of course, that's going to vary depending on, what country you're from, what region, and even where you grew up professionally. I know the company I grew up in, actually was very comfortable down here in the tail side. And you were actually expected to challenge each other and be challenged. And it was all okay because that was just part of the culture, and it was done in a constructive, positive way usually. But that's just something to think about if you really start exploring Soundwave. And then I think the other thing I would say about Soundwave and these voices is that, unlike your basic personality, which really doesn't change much over the course of your life, your voices and the way you use the voices in your profile, it will change. I know even without getting any training on Soundwave, the way I communicated and the voices I used were different when I was 45 than when I was 25. So the message there is really, hey, you can impact and change the way you communicate and the way you use these voices to make you more effective. Now, over here on the left are the definitions I referred to earlier. I'm going to focus on the 5 in red, which are the 5 voices we emphasize for engagement. And I'll start off down here in the ask side. So inquire, as you can see, is really about asking open-ended exploratory questions. And that's really kind of to get the ball rolling and to open a discussion. Let the person or the group talk. You ask the question and then listen. Diagnose is think about kind of like a doctor does. If you're sitting in with a doctor, they're going to ask a series of questions that are logical and ordered that kind of get to a diagnosis. And then finally, probe. Probe is where you're going a little bit deeper. You're trying to unlock the truth and get to the truth. You kind of see what's around the corner and what's being hidden. Kind of the way I approach it is I really start off with inquire. And then when I hear something that kind of piques my interest, I'll start probing a little bit. I typically personally don't use diagnose much, but I have seen it in action, and it can be very valuable when used correctly. This next voice in the tell is challenge. And that voice is probably one that people and groups struggle with the most, because culturally, some cultures just don't like the challenge or be challenged. And so it really does take an effort and kind of a focus and to kind of use that voice, but it's absolutely critical. And the way I think about using the challenge voice is that, groupthink can be problematic and is pretty common. So, I use challenge voice to kind of break up groupthink, or to, if I see someone or a team kind of locked in on a point of view, I'll use my challenge voice to kind of move them off that and get them thinking a different way. As we'll talk about in a second, of course, it has to be done in a constructive manner. If it's done unskillfully, it can really stop the conversation and close people down. And finally, the 5th voice in facilitation is articulate. And it's probably the most flexible and probably the one you need in your arsenal the most. And as you can read, it's really about describing or summarizing kind of what you've heard in a neutral way, matter-of-fact way. We call it the pivot voice. And that's the reason why it's so useful. If a group is kind of in a stalemate or a couple of people won't move, it's a good way to kind of say, hey, here's where we're at. Here's what I've heard. Let me make sure we're all aligned on where we're at, and then use that to pivot to another topic or a different question. So it's a good technique and a good voice to use when you need to kind of move the team or a person in a different direction. Now, just like with anything else, there's risk in overusing and then not using these voices enough. If I'll start off up here in the ask section. So if you inquire too heavy or use that voice too much, you can come across as being interrogative. If you use probe too much, you can sound like you're intrusive. Diagnose, like you're making things more complex. So you have to be really careful about using those ask voices, even though they're critical. Challenge, just like you would think, if someone uses challenge unskillfully or too heavy, you can come across as being, attacked. And then finally, from an articulate point of view, you can be verbose if you use that too much. And I think we've all seen people who, can come across as attacking and talk too much. I know that I have to be careful up here in these ask voices, inquire and probe. I can get pretty intense with those. So I've learned to kind of, monitor myself and self-regulate. And that's really kind of what it's about. Now, on the other side of the coin, if you don't use these voices enough, I'll let you read these, the probe, inquire, diagnose, challenge, and articulate. Kind of what you'll come across is unattached and disinterested and indifferent and almost like peripheral to the conversation. So the message here is really about, using these voices with purpose and skill. Before we move off the Soundwave, I can tell you that 25, 30 years, is in operation, supply chain, continuous improvement. I definitely wish I'd have known about Soundwave and been trained on Soundwave earlier in my career. It really is one of the best tools I've seen to help people develop their communication, facilitation skills. And the reason it is because it's very practical and it's very simple. And it's also tailored to you as an individual. It's not some generic tool that you go to the peanut butter spread. We apply these voices based on your profile, and I've seen it in action and have used it quite a bit with clients and also personally, and it definitely works. Moving off the voices, I want to talk a minute about what I call tradecraft, and these are kind of common sense, fundamental things that you should do in your facilitation, but are equally important and critical. I think when I see people facilitating strategy sessions or huddles, tier meeting huddles, or problem solving sessions, a lot of times I see, someone in a laptop trying to do everything. They're being a scribe. They're trying to facilitate. They're jotting down notes. So one thing I coach and teach people is, the job of a facilitator is to drive engagement, and you let the team do the work. It's very difficult to facilitate and drive engagement if you're trying to do all the work yourself. Listen more than talk. Good dialogue is mostly about listening. So, you have to kind of listen, read the room, see what's going on, look at body language, and that will drive how you facilitate and how you use your voices. Third is control the meeting and balance discussion with progress. And that's always a bit of an art. If you're in a tiered meeting and you're talking about a problem or an issue that kind of came up yesterday, balancing kind of the level of discussion with kind of keeping the meeting going is always kind of interesting and a challenge. But the more you do it, the better you get. Sometimes you need you need to go down into the discussion a little bit and get some detail. But then, when it starts going too deep, kind of move it off. Use your pivot voice, articulate, and then move on. But control the meeting is really the message. Use face-to-face and analog as much as possible. Now, this battle's probably been lost. The war's probably been lost. And we live in a time where, we've got really good tools, kind of like we're doing now. And, with hybrid work models, you're always going to have that going on from here on. But I do believe, and I think, being face-to-face is better for engagement. So we really do encourage problem-solving sessions and tiered meeting huddles to be face-to-face as much as possible. And then analog, again, I know that digital is always going to be there, and it can be productive. But certainly when you're first starting out and you're learning, face-to-face analog, I think helps. And then don't overthink it. If you're kind of working on your facilitation and you're just starting out and you're trying to improve, remember the goal is engagement and getting good quality discussion. And if you're doing that, if people are engaged and are talking, the rest will come. So don't overthink things. Just really try to get people engaged. The Soundwave voices, this tradecraft are important, but do it however it works for you as well. And then finally, what I mean by that is, start and end meetings on time, have written agendas, clear objectives, you'd be surprised at how important it is facilitation. I know when, I show up for a meeting and it starts 5 minutes or 10 minutes late and it goes 20 minutes over, I tend to be less engaged or don't show up for the next one. And so it's kind of setting that tone and that cadence of, hey, we're going to start and end on time. Here's what we're here to accomplish. Make sure everyone's aligned on that. Here's what we're going to cover. That's really important to good facilitation. So finally, how can I develop these skills? Well, I think one is, listen closely to how and what others are saying and try to understand, how they're feeling and thinking. And that's really about emotional intelligence. But it really is important when you're facilitating, you're trying to lead tier meetings and other kind of work sessions. Monitor your own thoughts and feelings. Are you responding appropriately to the situation? Be self-reflective. Certainly after the session, but also you'll learn to kind of do it within the session and change course and be agile and kind of your facilitation. That's really important. Run small experiments and adjust your style, and then see what the impact is to yourself and others. If you struggle or aren't comfortable using the challenge voice, think about how to do it in a positive way and have a plan for when you go into a meeting or a huddle, how you're going to use that. And just try it out, and you'll be surprised probably at how well it works. But if it doesn't land like you want it to, then try something else. So that's the beautiful thing about this Soundwave tool and facilitation. It's not life and death. So you can run these experiments and then adjust your style and get better. Watch how others talk and recognize the differences in reactions of outcomes to their conversations. And that's both good and bad, right? So we've all seen communicators that, we think are really, really good. And we've certainly seen ones that aren't very good, and you can learn from each. I know I've done that constantly in my career is, I know one or two people who I think are really, really good communicators that I've been lucky enough to work with a lot, and I emulate them and steal from them as much as possible. Equally, I've seen some that aren't so great, and I desperately try to do not do what they do. And so, watching how others, learning from others is really important. And then finally, the most important thing is to practice. Again, facilitation and communication. If you have an operating system where you're involved in tiered meetings, or you're an OpEx person or a continuous improvement person who are running problem-solving sessions, just take you've got a lot of opportunity to practice, and so take advantage of that. That's how you get better, and you will get better. Again, I've seen it in clients over the past couple of years, and even in my own career. Once we kind of say, hey, here's the voice or two you need to go work on, and then they get a little bit of coaching, they get better really quickly and become much more effective communicators and facilitators. So that's really me done. So Jordan, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Eric, for another great bite-sized session. I love this topic personally, and I think obviously the big thing is it's always that listening side that gets me. And don't think you have the answer to everything. We love the sound of our own voice, but we don't need to talk all the time. So again, thank you so much for that, Eric, and thank you guys for joining us today for Changemakers Bite Size. Just a reminder that next week we do hold our penultimate Bite Size session, and we welcome back John Quirk, who'll be doing his talk on Factory for the Planet or Factory for the Future. So once again, thank you, Eric. Thank you, everybody, for watching today, and I hope to see you guys next week.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the SA Partners YouTube channel and watch our Changemakers Bite Size series here.